Okay.
Q1. How do I check the mic and audio from the online joiner? You already did it? You just give me the call sign.
I don't know that I'm on as a presenter. I don't see where I can. But it's okay. I mean, you can see me speak, but yeah, I can take the podium. That's fine. Okay.
So either you fix it or
Just done it. Where do you want me sitting? Do you want me sitting down? It doesn't matter.
better to pick the podium because it's open. But I'll introduce you.
Okay, that's fine.
More natural. So I don't know. Okay. Yeah, we just turn it. Yeah. All right.
Just give me the call sign.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. To our audience in Seoul, in GGGI HQ, and also online, all around the world, welcome to the Greenpreneurs 2.0 session, particularly focusing on investing in climate tech startups in Asia Pacific region. We call this Southeast Asia. I would like to start off one thing. This year's the GGGW talks about the green growth in times of uncertainty. For those of us in the climate sector, I think I have a question to you. Who face more uncertainty in their daily work than startups and then venture capital and then entrepreneurs? But they play a vital role in the global team effort to achieve net zero emission by 2050. And the teamwork to create impact altogether is not an easy task. So today we'll discuss about it and what they and what we are doing in this kind of teamwork and why we need to value their contributions and then how we can work together, especially in Southeast Asia. Today we have an excellent panels from startups and the investor communities, like especially venture capital and impact funds, and also the supporters like the Global Green Growth Institute. I'm very excited to have this conversation. And before I begin the session, I'm also excited to introduce our Deputy Director General, Ms. Helena McLeod, who is also passionate about this movement and also has a personal commitment on this journey. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Helena for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Juhan. And yes, this is something, honestly, probably you don't know, but I've actually lived the entrepreneur's life. My father was an entrepreneur, and I know he took us to the brink of bankruptcy and rebuilt the family again. One of my most dear loved ones is also an entrepreneur and building something which will be a legacy for the world. So this is, it's not a normal lifestyle, I would say. It is something that completely consumes your soul, your body physically, your mind mentally. It is all consuming. So I really have the highest regard and esteem for entrepreneurs. Now, GGGI has also invested in this as one of the most important areas of our work. Since about 2018, we have supported our Greenpreneurs initiative, which is invested in particular micro, small entrepreneurs, but also some really exciting in Latin America bioeconomy entrepreneurs that have developed and incubated businesses around products from the Amazon. So in my job, I have had the privilege of meeting entrepreneurs, greenpreneurs from GGGI in Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, in the Caribbean, in in Colombia and in different parts of the world. They all share an incredible passion and an incredible achievement in this space. Now, today we launched the Greenpreneurs Stocktake report, and this is a fantastic report that Juhan has led with a number of our experts in this area. And it's really reviewed our achievements and looks now at what we can do to take this body of work to the next level. Now, climate technology is something where we have many of the solutions, but not all of the solutions globally. So coming up with new technologies, replicating technologies in new markets, sometimes bringing from advanced markets to less advanced markets, but sometimes those incubations are happening in the countries that are not the richest countries of the world, because these solutions need to be tailored to different levels of economy. This is the next stage of growth in the direction of really solving the biggest challenge that we're facing today on climate change. We have done some really successful things. We've supported 400 early stage companies, issued more than 100 grants and zero interest loans. We've raised over 3 million, and we've mobilized capital for a facility for over 25 million. So we've done a lot already, but this work is now significantly expanding. It's ramping up. And I'm excited that we're launching the first ever incubation in Vietnam, a focused startup accelerator in the energy efficiency space. That's really exciting. Inefficiency is such a low-hanging fruit. But we've also mobilized 200 million for a cross-Asia climate technopreneurs incubation initiative with the GCF and the Korea Development Bank. And that is going to really scale up our work, taking it to bigger startups, so not the micro, but the startups, and really incubating them to larger scale. Now we have finance, but we need the investable companies. And we're going to hear from some of those today. We need to work together collaboratively with financiers in this incubation space. So I've recognized, just how personal these commitments are. Each story is a unique story that an entrepreneur will tell you. And I look forward to hearing both, the journey that these amazing CEOs have experienced so far and where they would like to take their companies, also in terms of leaving a legacy for the region and for the world. We have a very esteemed panel from Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, Korea, and Singapore, from VC startups and founders to catalytic grant providers. So do enjoy the session and do really respect these people that have really given so much of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we start the panel discussion, I'll just give you 1 minute presentation about the report that Helena mentioned. Waiting for the PowerPoint slide to be ready. So basically, for the past 5 years, like you said, the GGGO has been working on the climate entrepreneurs, how to incubate them, how to accelerate them. We've been considering a lot about it because in most of our member countries, they are emerging market. They're the least developed countries. They don't have a proper ecosystem to support those entrepreneurs. So for the learn a couple of things, but the most important thing I'd like to discuss is, next slide, please. It's that the International Renewable Energy Agency, they made a scenario. So until 2050 net zero, how we were able to reduce emissions through which technologies. And then based on this scenario, until 2050, in order to achieve net zero, the technologies currently available, the climate technology currently available will contribute only 30% of the reduction, meaning that more or less 50% of the emissions needs to be done through the technologies that are currently in demonstration or early adoption or prototyping stage. So there is a reason why we want to work with the startups and entrepreneurs, because those technologies needs to be commercialized through the effort from entrepreneurs and then startups. Next slide, please. So for the past 5 years, we started the Greenpreneurs initiative in 2018, and then we supported more than 400 companies. And then Helena mentioned the work in the ecosystems and the biodiversity, and then we somehow mobilized 25 million the climate facilities for that region. And also, well, these are early stage entrepreneurs, extreme early stage, so to speak, they were able to mobilize more than 3 million out of, after receiving our support. But from the perspective of number, it's a small number, but it's quite substantial if you think about the fact that we dealt with extreme early stage entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. And then now the report is basically saying that. So we are launching the report now. So you will be able to see the report. But we kind of narrowed down 3 key pillars. Number 1 is acceleration. Number 2, investment. So through direct matchmaking between investors and the startups, and also working together with the investors like venture capital impact funds to mobilize capital that can be channeled to the startups working on the climate issues, and also developing the right network with like-minded people. So this is somehow our short conclusion. And I would like to introduce panel now. We have a very good lineup of panels. I'm really glad to introduce each panel. I will give you 30 seconds, but I would like to introduce one by one. So first, I would like to introduce Carlo from Philippines. He's head of circular economy in Gobi Partners, and he also has been working together with GGGI for the last 5 years through the Greenpreneurs initiatives. So Carlo, do you want to introduce yourself? 1 minute?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Coming from the Philippines. Thanks for having me. It's great to be part of the Greenpreneurs ecosystem for a while, from EIR and then talking about circular economy. But my name is Carlo Chandelantar. I am a partner and head of ESG and circular economy for Gobi Partners. We're an Asia-focused fund, and I think most relevant here, the past 3 years, we've seen a rise of investments in the circular economy scene in ASEAN. And I think what's crucial here is to understand where it will go and its implication for nation building in this region. So we'll talk more about that later, but thanks for having me.
Thank you, Carlo, for your time. And then I would like to introduce Ki-Jong Kwan. He's currently the CEO of NHARP Singapore, and then also he's very renowned in the capital market, especially private equity in Singapore for more than 20 years. So, Ki-Jong, over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ki-Jong, who is leading NH Absolute Return Partners, an asset management company based in Singapore. And we are a part of NH Financial Group, one of the largest financial group in Korea. Great to join this event and happy to share my humble opinion with you. We have been witnessing a lot of capital inflows for the Southeast Asia climate tech spaces for the last 5 years, and happy to discuss about these the huge trend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ki-Jong, and welcome. And then now I'd like to introduce the panel here in Seoul. So first, the CEO and co-founder of Thanks Carbon, Haewon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Kim, CEO of Thanks Carbon. At Thanks Carbon, we focus on helping rice farmers adopt the AWD, alternate wetting and drying in rice farming, which reduces methane emissions and conserves water. We work closely with farmers in Southeast Asia, including Vietnam, Cambodia, and Bangladesh, to ensure they successfully transition to sustainable farming and generate carbon credits, which we then sell to governments or companies. Sharing the revenue with the farmers, we've also developed AI-based satellite monitoring technology, reducing costs while maintaining scientific accuracy and transparency, which ensures high-quality carbon credits. That's all.
Thank you, Helen. And I would like to introduce Mr. Kam Chan, who is also co-founder and the CEO of the Touchstone Partners, which is the first climate tech focused VC in Vietnam.
Thanks for having me here today. My name is Kam Chan, and I'm the managing partner of Touchstone Partners. We are the early stage investment fund with Vietnam focus. We are also the pioneer of climate tech investments in early stage in Vietnam. Apart from investing, we are also implementing the Energy Efficiency Accelerator with the support from GGGI and EU and hosted by the Ministry of Industry and Trade of Vietnam. We are also the co-organizer of the biggest climate tech competition in Vietnam called Net Zero Challenge. Thanks for having me here today.
Thank you, Karen. Welcome to Seoul. And also, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chosen, the CEO and founder of Chosen Digital, and he's also the first prize winner of the Shark Tank, which is the largest startup TV show in Thailand, and he's working for EV-related charger software. I mean, you can explain better than me.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Chosen, the founder CEO of Chosen Digital. I'm the startup from Thailand that we can aggregate, or we are an EV aggregator that we can combine, aggregate the energy, like a gigawatt energy of EV to be able to control the loads, and also we can treat them. Our startup, we are the national award startup, and also CMA won the first prize from Minister of Vietnam just last week, and also the project from Thailand and also ASEAN government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chosen. He just took a overnight flight and just arrived in Seoul. So thank you for having with his own pocket, from his own pocket. So appreciate the participation, Mr. Chosen.
Thank you.
And we have a last panel from our own Stella from the Global Greenpreneurs Institute.
Thank you. My name is Stella Lee. I'm a senior green investment specialist for Asia. My focus has been on Asia for various sectors. But for the past 3 years, I've been leading the design of the GSTEP project for promoting climate technopreneurship and investment for 5 ASEAN countries, together with the KDB, Korea Development, which is the AE for GCF, and also other private partners, which was briefly introduced by Helena in her opening remark. And actually, I'm from a very different background. Before joining GGGI, I worked for the large scale traditional infrastructure investment and PPP from the Ministry of Economy and Finance and Korea Development Institute. But actually, my first career after school was in the private sector with the venture company in the IT and e-commerce sector called G-Market. So I think my background is pretty relevant for this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella, for joining. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have 40 minutes and we don't have any presentation. We have a C-suite list, and we're going to make it as a more conversational. So we'll try our best, and also feel free to have your question ready during the Q&A session later on. So I'm going to have 2 rounds with these panels. The first round is about to understand the current landscape of the climate tech investment. So for some people, so it's not, some people saying that, oh, the investment in the climate tech is not really ready. And then whether we have that kind of asset class or not, there are a number of discussion around it. So we just wanted to understand from the startups and the VC point of view, what's going on in Southeast Asia. So first, I want to ask Chosen to understand the sector. So you're dealing with the transport sector and energy sector. So what's the main problem in the sector, especially in Thailand and Southeast Asia? I mean, I just wanted to understand the rationale why you are doing this job.
Okay, thank you. Actually, we live in electric vehicle that are going to be a huge market, and also it's energy because roads like charging is like a turn on 5 aircon at the same time, and charging at the same time may be huge load of energy. Infrastructure like the transformers and electric cable they didn't design for this load before. So it could be and electric will be shut down for the whole area. So this is a huge problem. So in Thailand only is about $100,000 that need to be replaced in Thailand. But this is not in Thailand, it's a global problem, especially in ASEAN countries. That is the infrastructure that didn't design for this load before. So it's huge investment that need to replace the all infrastructure. That's why we develop our AI and also the platform that can or educate the loads ability to control the loads, the capacity or infrastructure. This is the problem of the infrastructure that we develop our solution. Yes.
So Chosen, so what is your solution? Can you elaborate a bit more about your software?
Actually, after we can educate the loads, we can use the AI to control the loads, to the loads. Install investment or infrastructure, but investments just users. So the user to consent to control the loads from the user side. Yes, from the user side. When the user get the benefit, they're okay to lower the loads. The government also lower the cost to investment and also to give the benefit to the user. User get the benefit, government get the benefit, and also from the buildings also we need to upgrade for infrastructure as well. All the win. This is our solution.
So what's your main customers then? So how do you deal with
buildings? So the hotels, condominium buildings is many of the hotels and buildings in Thailand already install our platform. And the government also have the B2G. B2G also the government, and also B2C the users. We have the B2C, B2B, and B2G.
I see. Thank you, Chosen. And then let me move on to the other sector, which is another important sector, agriculture. So Hewan, so what kind of problems you're looking into through your business, if you can make it short?
Actually, agriculture is the largest source of methane emissions, with the rice farming being a major contributor. This fact surprises me and thanks Carbon team. So we have been focused on tackling this issue, reducing methane emissions in rice farming. So we have solved this issue by creating new climate technology, an AI-based satellite MRV solution that reduces monitoring cost to 1/80th of the original price to monitor the huge land and land changes. This makes carbon credit generation economically viable to give the farmers benefit from the carbon credit.
So you're basically trying to utilize AI technologies to detect whether the farmers and then the project developers are implement properly the AWD through your techniques.
Right.
I see. So thank you for that. Then moving on to understand the perspective of the investor. So Khan, you're kind of first climate tech focused early stage investors, and then I know that you invested in one of the companies, like one of the rising EV two-wheeler motorcycle company in Vietnam. It had a nationwide attention. So I mean, I just wanted to understand from investors' point of view. So what are the drivers, and then what are the barriers, and then how you make decisions to invest in these kind of companies with high risk, so to speak.
Thanks. Let me address the drivers first. I guess the first driver is why we invest in climate tech is the climate itself. It really changed and it's still changing. Vietnam, according to one of the USAID's research, Vietnam is one of the top 5 countries affected by climate change. While we are the top exporter of some of the most important commodities in the world, rice, coffee, bronze, if I'm not wrong. And so, any effect, any change or any lower productivity of our agricultural product would actually affect the global commodity price. That's just one example, right? Our emission at the same time increased 5 times over the last 20 years as well. Because of all of these things, all of these reasons, our Prime Minister actually committed to net zero by 2050 at COP26. So those are the biggest drivers, I guess, for capital in general, public and private, to actually pour into the climate tech solutions for Vietnam. Now, let me talk a bit about the barrier. Helena mentioned the journey of entrepreneurship, and it's risky to run a startup, and it's even more risky to have a climate tech startup. It's double the risk, basically. And it's perceived to be more risky. And usually these technologies companies, climate tech companies, they have very deep tech, meaning it's a process like Haewon mentioned earlier, or it's like a new technology mixing some ingredient together in agriculture, or it's some process that probably not yet proven at a large scale. That is perceived and deemed more risky, and to the investors. And just as any other kind of innovative business models, climate tech usually have like a business model that the current regulatory framework is not so familiar with, and so that's also a barrier for investors to consider those in investment as well. The last but not least is the lack of capital, especially at the early stage, into this space. So that's something that we would want to address as well, over the next few years, especially in this part of the world.
Yeah, thanks, Khan. That's quite insightful. Well, let me ask a similar question to Ki-jung. So you're from the financial world, and you're now trying to invest your time and efforts in terms of sourcing the proper the so-called climate tech companies, and then you need to make the business case with them. So from your perspective, how do you see the key drivers and barriers, and then any insight from your side? Ki-jung, you're on mute. On your mic.
Okay, sorry. So they basically, except for COVID days, we had a meaningful initiatives in mobility area back in year 2018 and 19, and startups and unicorns and even conglomerates try to jump into the transfer from the legacy motorbikes and internal combustion engines to EVs. But as Khan said, we are not able to see ecosystem in climate tech back then. But however, now we have evolution by establishing some ecosystems, which is a bit weak relatively, but subsectors in climate techs are being diversified into food system, agri-tech, and circular economy. But the thing is here, the interesting number that I heard in the industry-wise in Singapore, the share of climate tech in all venture funding in South Asia surged to 10% last year from 3% in 2019, which shows compound growth rate is 15% for the last 5 years. But the total amount for climate tech in this region is less than 1 billion, which account for only 2% of total raised fund for global climate tech, the funding services. So I would say we are still in the very early stage, and key drivers for climate tech investment is companies' revenue generation capabilities are expanded. And this means we have markets out there, definitely. But thing is, the size is still small. And we have witnessed significant changes in not only mobility area, but also in energy storage, food and agri systems, which looks encouraging. But the problem is, we have here is climate techs are invested in heavily done by venture capitals only. Just can't just say, still venture capitals are not as active as people expect, but with the stats, only venture capitals are actively doing for climate tech in entire, the asset management business in these regions. So the climate tech startups would need to take more capitals for growth as they mature in the near future, right? So, however, there are very limited number of investors who seek opportunities in later stages. So here are some hurdles on this gap. I call this capital gap. So the early stages are funded, but later stage or mid to late stages are less funded at the moment. So I think venture capitalists still prefer software companies who are related to carbon markets, data analysis, and measure, because those names are familiar to them. But it doesn't need that large capital. But crucial climate tech needs facilities and machines, like more physical. So they are capital intensive business models. However, we need a way to see meaningful revenue come in for many years, even if we put relatively big amount of investment. So another reason for capital gap is coming from scalability issue. So in other words, can we have unicorns like Grab, GoTo, Shopee, etc. in Southeast Asia? So people are, still skeptical on the questions. And lastly, we don't have big stock markets that supply enough liquidities in Southeast Asia. So Singapore has potential, but it is still highly exposed to financial and real estate, while Indonesia and Vietnamese equity markets have thin liquidities. So this is an obstacle for exit for late stage investors. So those three the barriers must be got rid of in near future. Then maybe late stage the fund managers like us are try to jumping into the market very actively.
Well, thank you, Kijang. That's quite insightful. And then listening to you, I'm kind of thinking that so we have a specific segment in terms of startup investment is missing, and then it's a corresponding capital is missing. But at the same time, we're not really there's no kind of like a great common understanding of what kind of company needs to be really invested, because from our climate practitioners' perspective, we think about the impact, like how these companies can really deliver climate impact, reducing greenhouse gases and then making some new jobs and etc. But those things needs to be discussed more with the investment community listening to you. Well, before I move on to the next topic, I have to ask Carlo. I mean, you're an investor and also you're with a certain sector called the circular economy for a long time. So what is your view on this agenda, Carlo?
Well, I think thanks, Jared. So maybe something close to everyone's heart, and especially in Vietnam. So it's the first time ever that Robusta has surpassed the prices of Arabica, and that's a big deal, especially in this space, right? And most of how it's affecting the markets is, of course, we're a coffee drinking region. But at the same time, we have a lot of startups now. We call them the coffee wars in Southeast Asia. How does that affect the supply, demand, and the pricing? So all these things are crucial because climate does affect tech in general now. And we're going to see that with chocolate. We're going to see that with farming and everything else. And truly to the point, software in climate tech is definitely under ice, but seeing the region in its space, we're seeing a huge investment trend in e-waste. We're also seeing a lot more in agri. Textile is definitely on the brink of a new breakthrough again. But for plastics, you see a lot more policy-driven incentives and investments that are really supporting this space. So we're bullish in circular economy, and we know for a fact that the world that we live in, we have finite resources. And with that being an important factor, this space will have its own level of attention moving forward. And the past 3 years really made sense, right? The past 3 years, circular economy investments have been on the top 2 or 3 in terms of total deal volume and deal value over time outside of Gen AI.
Thank you, Carlo. Maybe I'd like to ask Stella from GGGI, because you have been leading the comprehensive feasibility study particularly on the gaps in terms of climate tech investment in Southeast Asia for 5 Mekong countries plus Philippines. and Indonesia. So, well, the Gideon mentioned about, the financial gap, the specific segment, but in your study and in your understanding, what are the major gaps you identified, Stella, to share with all of us?
Thank you for your question, Juhan. So, right, compared to the developed countries, of course, startups and entrepreneurs in developing countries are facing a lot of different kind of challenges, including weaker support system and lack of finance, and also, fragmented linkage to the value chain and market, among others. So, and the situation is even much worse for climate technologies, right? So, in the process of designing this GCF program for promoting climate technopreneurship and investment, we have conducted the country-specific, analysis for entrepreneur ecosystem and market gap in those 5 countries in Southeast Asia. And among, we identified various challenges. Of course, some are country-specific and some are more general in the region, including, for example, of course, the lack of finance in various stages, and also the enabling environment, including relevant policies and regulations, and infrastructure and R&D, and human capital, and also the lack of capacity in terms of local incubators and accelerators to support the climate businesses in the market. So as Ki-jung mentioned, startups are facing lack of finance, the access to finance in various stages. And we also found that, that early stage seed capital is pretty much available in most countries, but the next stage funding for the growth stage was the next stage, the middle stage is lacking for various reasons. And then from the investor side, the investment readiness is a key hurdle. So due to the lack of financing management skill and also the marketing skill of those startups. So capacity gap is leading to the financing gap, in our analysis. So, and in particular for climate technologies, it normally involves much longer term, investment horizon with, significant R&D cost in early stage. So it tends to be more challenging for those technology to access finance and grow on a, national basis. So given the urgent need for climate action in those countries, severely affected by climate change, like, Mr. Khan mentioned in Vietnam. So we feel that, immediate action is, critical by promoting cross-border, collaboration and also transfer of technology, climate technology. So that's what we found in the analysis, and considering this, dynamics and the landscape in those countries, we found that comprehensive approach to promote investment combined with ecosystem building is most effective to address this gap and also to achieve this climate ambition of these countries. Thank you.
Thanks, Stella. So we basically discussed the sectoral issues, the transport sector, energy sector, agriculture sector, circular economy sector, and then the basic, the position from the investors, like Yi-jung and Khan said. So now for the round 2, we want to discuss what can we do for the collaboration. Stella kind of mentioned that, the climate tech transfer, because in emerging market, you mentioned the long-term horizon in terms of investment in the new technologies. So, but our objective is time-bound. We need to reduce emissions as soon as possible. So, how do we deal with this kind of problem? So, long-term horizon for investment, and then immediate need to deliver impact. So that's kind of thing we want to discuss for the round 2. And then, creating impact not only includes the impact for the climate related ambition, but also the social ambitions, and then the beneficiary, how to share benefits through this new finance flow, etc. But for this round, I would like to ask Stella first because you mentioned that issues. So then, well, we are trying to collaborate on the how we support each other to make the potential climate tech transfer, and then from the climate practitioner perspective, like a grant provider, facilitator, Stella, the GGGI is working on that. We're also, what kind of incentives, what kind of programs, or what kind of the partnership needs to be created to make that kind of happen, to collaborate with the so-called emerging markets, utilizing the technologies. I mean, I mentioned 30% technologies already available that will be contributing to the net zero 2050. That's the technology available, but not yet fully commercialized, utilizing emerging market. And that's one issue. The other issue, we need to develop new technologies together with the advanced countries as well. So what is your thinking, Stella, on that?
Right. So thank you for another opportunity to talk about the project I'm leading. So as we mentioned, developing countries cannot wait long, right, for their self-developed climate technology to grow and to be competitive and to be deployed in the market in many cases. So in order to reach current climate goals. So I highlighted that regional and international cooperation will be critical to bridge this gap and promote climate technology transfer to emerging markets. So in this context, GCF Climate Technopreneurship Program is taking a comprehensive and consolidated approach to facilitate investment combined with ecosystem development in these 5 countries. So key component is, of course, to set up a 200 million equity fund, partly funded by GCF's first loss equity, which will be managed by Mr. Huang here in the panel list. At the same time, the program would provide acceleration services to local startups and SMEs in close partnership with local, accelerators and venture capital, like Mr. Khan here, and then which will also support the, these local companies to be partnered with the global tech firms with climate solution for example, technology transfer or licensing agreement or other forms of partnership between the two, and even for forming the joint venture if effective. Also, the program will contribute to the ecosystem building in overall. For example, to provide capacity building of local local accelerators and incubators to focus on climate technology, not like, IT or digital technology only. And also to work with the government to address policy gap, for example, to strengthen the IP framework, which is also a key hurdle for the investor or technology transfer to work with the local startups. So these are the key kind of component of this GCF program. So the program was approved last July by the GCF board after 3 years of design and review. So now we are ready to implement, and the program will engage, diverse ecosystem players in those 5 countries and in the region, and even with the global players. And we believe that the international organization like GGGI is in a very good position to support this comprehensive program and working with the government counterpart and also diverse ecosystem players in the region. So I'm very looking forward to, launch this program next year. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. So it sounds like it's a big deal. But at the same time, we need to work very effectively, right, to make it happen with all kind of players. So, wow, congratulations. But at the same time, we need to accelerate our collaboration with the multiple partners in this space. Well, from that point of view, I'd like to ask the investors, first, Khan, just stepping back, not really, talking about certain program, but more about the market perspective, how the venture capitalist and then so-called impact investors, how they need to work together with so-called public sectors or foundations or any kind of different players, how we work together to, make these kind of climate technology to be adopted, in an accelerated scale.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Juan, for asking the question. So, I mean, we are the investor and we invest, that's our core business. However, as we build our pipeline and actually help our portfolios, we find ourselves in a position of actually building up the continuum of capital for climate tech startups as well. Meaning we work with different public sectors kind of grants or foundations, philanthropies to make sure that, the early stage risk can be de-risked for risk capital for our fund to invest in. Accelerate, so that's on the more capital kind of side and de-risking side. But that also means that, if there's more kind of grants, foundations, philanthropies putting more early stage grant into the capital, I would say continuum. That will motivate the founders to actually go out and actually build companies as well. I mean, we, in the energy efficiency accelerator that we launched 2.5 months ago, we just closed the application and we were very surprised to get, close to 200 applications across this well-established startups and also on the youth tracks. Basically, the companies or the ideas coming out of the students in Vietnam as well. So without this kind of program, these founders would be underserved. So they never believed that, they can build a company out of that, and, they can raise capital and build a company and grow the company as well. Right. So that's I would say it's critical to be able to catalyze more capital into climate tech.
Thanks, Khan. Yeah, that's great comment. I do agree with you. And then, I just wanted to hear from from your perspective, what needs to be done more to push for this momentum.
Sorry. Yeah. I don't like to categorize the climate tech by type, but I would say there are a couple of methodologies to divide. But first one is nature-based solutions versus engineered solutions. We are talking about all the climate tech. When we talk about the climate tech, we tend to speak about startups, but climate tech is very broad concept. So we could select like energy companies, huge conglomerate, which are investing a lot of the amount of money into some emissions and all these mitigation activities. But so government grants must be used for nature-based solutions, I believe. Because nature-based solutions, the return on, ROI would be minimal and lower than any other commercial stuff. And market-based mechanisms, definitely those areas must be executed by the group conglomerate. So we have been seeing a lot of efforts and passions by the top energy companies in Malaysia, Thailand, even Vietnam. We know that Vin groups are the high passions about the spending into their EVs, but all these chemicals and energy companies are pouring money in some hydro capacities and all these. But now I just want to focus on the private-public partnership because the Stella just mentioned, but we recently got endorsement from 39th GCF board meeting on climate tech fund, and I believe this could be a good instance for private-public partnerships. We need to admit that climate tech investments risk return profile could be inferior to AI or fintech and e-commerce platforms, etc., which are focusing on profitability. So traditional financing schemes often fall short in meeting the needs of climate technology developers or financiers. due to the unattractive risk return profiles. So in the case, we need to think in a different way. A private-public partnership could offer innovative financing schemes to remove this gap. I would say climate tech fund, which we will manage, could be innovative financing schemes in an instrument with balanced financing schemes, because we do invest with the type of equities, mezzanines, as well as loans. And also GCF's contribution will be acting as the junior interest, which means senior LP's money will be taken care of firstly. So this type of innovative scheme, which is originated from private and public partnership, can be solved the financial gap for these climate tech spaces, especially Southeast Asia, in Asia regions. Thank you.
Fair enough, Ki-jung. Thank you for sharing that. So that's what GGG has been looking for as well, like Stella mentioned, for the last couple of years. And then we wanted to develop a similar deal with many LPs and then GPs together to make that kind of the solution, innovative solutions, to be replicated in the market. So thanks for sharing, Ki-jung, on that. So I just wanted to talk about the sector just a bit, 3 minutes each. So maybe starting with Carlo. Well, you're a VC, but at the same time, you're the promoter of the circular economy, not in the Philippines, but also the countries in Southeast Asia. So, well, I mean, we are dealing with the plastic, we're dealing with the materials, etc. But, if you want to create a market, you also need to provide relevant training to deal with waste and etc. And then, the current situation is not really matured enough. So how do you deal with these kind of issues? Kind of the perspective of creating market for the circular economy sector.
It's a lot to answer there, but I'll try to structure it. So I think circular economy, in terms of harmonization and the taxonomy of what is truly circular, it's still being decided by everyone, whether that's policymakers, the ecosystem. But I think in general, when you look at circular economy, there are really three principles, right? Designing out waste and pollution, keeping products and materials in use, and regenerating natural systems. So in that sense, we can put it in that. Now, let me tell you about the story of a good use case of where the ecosystem works properly. And usually we would bucket it in two specific disciplines: upstream, circular economy, and of course, downstream. So upstream, to put it in layman's term, anything that can be done and solved within the ecosystem before it gets to consumers. And then downstream would mean consumers afterwards. I think e-waste is a great example. As you know, Southeast Asia is really adopting the EV battery storage and mobility scene. And because the lack of supply in the space, whether that's materials and most especially in the battery side, what ends up happening now is those materials and products, even if they're on the road, they're already sold for recycling somewhere else. And it's really a closed loop systems. And I think that's a great example of how the unprecedented collaboration within a specific value chain can work towards a circular economy. What's harder to tackle would be downstream circular economy models, mainly because you're not just working within your ecosystem, but you're working with waste pickers. You're looking at government policies when it comes to landfill. Some would say even incineration. And it's a bit more complicated because there's so many more stakeholders that we have to address. Now, I think technology gives this momentum that we can actually tackle this. Now, how do you do it in an equitable manner, most especially when the lines of circular economy could be either a nature-based solution or engineered solution, like what Ki-jung is saying, is something yet to be decided. But I think to just finish off my train of thought here, what's important now is we need to celebrate circular economy, climate tech companies that are really pushing the boundaries of what it means to be successful in this region. Gone are the days where it's just about scalability. It's about fundamental usage, the impact, and actually creating a sustainable business, whether that's economical, social, and environmental.
Thanks, Carlo, for saying that. So I can naturally move on to Thanks Carbon, because you're dealing with the farmers and agriculture sector. So what you do generating carbon credit, doing the 8WD, what do you give? What kind of benefits you can give to the farmers?
In agriculture sector, to transition to sustainable agriculture and support farmers, three incentives seems crucial: government subsidy, and grant or ODA, and the carbon market mechanism. But as we know, the subsidy and ODA have limitations. So in business sector, we focus on using credits to ensure long-term sustainability. At Thanks Carbon, we leverage MRV, measuring, reporting, verification technology, to share carbon credit revenues with farmers, empowering their economically. And I think that it's a mixed approach. It will be a very important subsidy or ODA grant with market-based solution. It will be a good helpful to farmers, such as first ODA to countries, and second market driven mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you, Helen. And then lastly, I would like to ask Chosen, I mean, industry, AI-based the EV charger software and then some new technology. So how do you deal with the workforce and the skill development?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we need a lot of skill development, because we need to collaborate with many solutions as well, because we aggregate. So that's why we need to aggregate or join or communicate with many chargers and with many partners as well, including with the big government that they have the big data from the SCADA data that they send the real-time data for us to develop the AI to control the loads for them. So we need to collaborate with many partners, and we need to, because the project is quite large, it's a national scale, so we need a lot of workers, skilled workers to develop. So we still don't have enough manpower to develop this. So we are going to have bigger team as well. That's why we are looking for expanding. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chosen. So we only have 2 minutes left, so we may not be able to have questions, but if you have any questions, burning question from the floor. Okay, the gentleman, it's very quick, please.
And what I observe is type of market dysfunctional thanks to government subsidies. Because we enable things like demand response participation, which is very
Second, please.
which is very juicy. But is there a way, in your view, for this to work without government subsidies?
Okay, but government subsidies,
Without the government.
without government subsidies, actually, we're still using our self-funding. Luckily, we got many awards, like national awards and awards, that we get the free grant from the government and from the awards. And actually, we with our own funding, but we move so fast. But with the funding from many of the awards now.
Thank you for the question, and then thank you, Chosen. Any other question from the floor? Okay, so I just wanted to highlight, I need to finish, but so if this is a movie, the startups and the venture capitalists, they are the main actors in this scene. So maybe the Stella and myself as a support actor. So and then Helena mentioned the stress they are managing to make something new happen. This is there's enormous challenges. So we're all climate practitioners, either you're donor practitioners or the tech provider or any kind of investor. So we just need to respect, each other's rhythm to understand better to accelerate this kind of partnership process. That's only thing I wanted to say. And having said that, I would like to thank and appreciate all the panelists and then audiences here in Seoul and then also online all over the world. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining.